Good morning and welcome to Urban Update. I'm Byron Barnett. On the program today, we'll give you all the details on a new merger that will expand local ability to preserve rare and threatened species as our friends from Zoo New England join us later this morning. Also on the show, a summer program working with local students that works to close the opportunity gap for unserved kids. More on that later. But up first, Stop Handgun Violence is a nonprofit organization committed to the prevention of gun violence through public awareness, effective law enforcement, and common sense gun laws. With 88 gun deaths in the U.S. every day, more than Columbine and Virginia Tech combined, they believe it's time we start putting lives before politics. Stop Handgun Violence is not calling for restrictions to our constitutional rights, but just common sense legislation that will help save lives. Recently, Stop Handgun Violence sent President Donald Trump and nearly 300 members of Congress who have sided with the gun lobby a graphic wake-up call in the form of a mailed invitation to enact national laws to protect American citizens from additional mass shootings. Here to tell us more about this non-conventional invitation and also more about the work of Stop Handgun Violence is the organization's founder, John Rosenthal. John, welcome to Urban Update. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Brian.
First of all, I guess let's begin just by talking about a little bit of, just give us a little history of Stop Handgun Violence and, and what it stands for.
Sure. As a business person and a gun owner, I co-founded Stop Handgun Violence with the late Michael Kennedy, one of Bobby Kennedy's kids, to try and change the conversation about gun violence and ultimately change policy in Massachusetts without banning most guns in order to create a model for the nation. And since 1994, we have enacted gun laws in 1998, 2004, and 2014. And we have reduced the rate of gun deaths by 60%, and Massachusetts now has the lowest gun death rate in the nation, and we've done it in a bipartisan way. We're a model for the rest of the nation.
We'll talk more about that later, but first, tell me about this invitation that you sent to Congress.
So since 1994, when we built the billboard on the Mass Pike and have had all those messages around gun safety and gun violence, that 250,000 people would see every day on the Mass Pike, over 800,000 Americans have died from guns in this country. In fact, more people have died from gun violence since 1975 in the United States than all U.S. servicemen and women killed in all foreign wars combined. That's over 1.4 million Americans, and there's no criminal background check, and we make assault weapons like the AR-15 used at Sandy Hook, which today is the anniversary, without a background check. So we are, we reap what we sow, and the NRA owns the Republican Party and has intimidated the Democratic Party into submission.
That's an amazing statistic you've there. Now, talk to me about, I guess, this invitation. It wasn't just a pretty little invitation. It was extremely graphic. We have some of the pictures, but we can't even really put them on TV because they are so graphic. But talk to me about your motivation in sending something so graphic to members of Congress and public officials.
Sure. I mean, remember, these are photographs. They're not the real dead bodies that first responders and family members had to identify. These are photographs of the Las Vegas mass shooting where 58 people were killed and over 550 wounded with an AR-15 assault rifle using a .223 round. Now that .223 round, same weapon used at Sandy Hook, is not designed to penetrate. It's a weapon of war designed to stop and tumble and create maximum soft tissue damage. This is the weapon used at Sandy Hook. This is the weapon that parents of the children at Sandy Hook told me they had to identify their children who received 3 to 11 rounds with the AR-15 by their clothing because they were indistinguishable. The entry wound looks like that from one round. The exit wound is this big from one round. Now, this is a weapon of war that you can buy in New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, and 33 states without an ID or background check. So it is because Congress has chosen, knowingly chosen, to support unrestricted access to easily concealed handguns and large capacity ammunition magazines and weapons of war without detection for blood money campaign contributions. So this invitation says you're invited, and when you open it up, it says to wipe the blood off your hands, and then it shows the killing field in Las Vegas with body parts, with bodies without heads, without limbs, because this is what Congress has created, and this is what the majority of Americans are allowing to happen without holding Congress accountable.
Did you get any response at all from Congress at all? President,
Well,
anybody?
The best response we got was it ended up in The Hill, which is the Capitol Hill newspaper, with the photographs. And the photographs were seen around the country, and we've received incredible feedback. The other side of the coin is we hit a nerve with the gun industry, and the gun industry is led by Cerberus Capital Management. Cerberus means three-headed dog guarding the gates of hell, and it's an investment equity firm on Wall Street. They own Bushmaster. They own the weapons used at Sandy Hook, San Bernardino, Las Vegas, and they own Star Market, Shaw's Market, Osco Drug. So if you want to vote with your wallet, if you can't get Congress to hold the gun industry accountable, we can boycott these supermarket chains in order to get them to stop selling these weapons of mass destruction.
A couple of things I want to get into rather quickly here. Now, a couple of days after the invitation was sent to the House passed a bill that will allow people to carry concealed weapons across state lines if their home state allows it. What do you think about that legislation?
Think about that. So Massachusetts is an urban industrial state. We have enacted the most comprehensive gun laws and have the lowest gun death rate in the nation. We are the NRA's worst nightmare. So what the NRA is doing is they got their shills in Congress to work to undermine every state gun law by saying that Jared Loughner, who shot Gabby Giffords in the head and bought his gun at a gun store in Arizona, could bring it to Massachusetts, where we require training, licensing, and registration, and be legal in the state. It would create mayhem in Massachusetts. Law enforcement's against it, the attorney general's against it, the governor's against it, and shame on Congress for caving in again to create more gun violence, more fear, and more gun sales for their benefactors in the gun industry.
Well, John, why is it that more than 80% of Americans support common sense gun restrictions, but Congress just keeps loosening them?
Because we live in a democracy, and the majority of Americans are not holding their members of Congress accountable.
What about Massachusetts? Let's talk about Massachusetts a little more. How do the laws here differ from the national laws? You said early on that Massachusetts has the lowest gun death rate in the country. Why is that, in your
Because
view?
we just make it harder for criminals, the dangerously mentally ill, and even international terrorist groups that exploit lax gun laws in other states. We just make it harder in Massachusetts to get a gun if you're a prohibited person. So we require background checks for all gun sales. Law enforcement who issue permits have discretion on whether to issue a permit. We're the first state in the nation to put consumer protection standards on guns. I mean, get this. The truth is stranger than fiction when it comes to gun policy. If you want to make and sell a toy gun, there's a multitude of federal regulations, including a red dot at the end of the barrel. To sell a real gun that will result in 100 deaths today and every day, and a mass shooting of 4 more people every single day in this country, no manufacturing and marketing standards. Massachusetts became the first state in the nation to put consumer protection standards on firearms like every other product. We basically treat guns like automobiles. They're both inherently dangerous, and we require accountability and responsibility.
What happened to that giant billboard on the Mass Pike that near Fenway Park that you would always see driving by? You've been putting up billboards for years there, Stop Handgun Violence.
Right. So I built that billboard in 1994. It helped change the conversation and ultimately changed laws here in Massachusetts. So that
There's one of the
we're
billboards
leading.
Right there.
Yes.
The first one was the faces of many of the handgun victims, many of them children.
Yep. It
That
said
we drove by it
15
every
kids
day.
killed every day. Yeah. So we are going to replace that billboard. I mean, there's currently a 90-foot billboard, not a 250-foot billboard, but a 90-foot billboard in the Back Bay. And now that we're moving forward with a new development called Fenway Center in the Fenway, we're going to replace the billboard with a permanent gun violence prevention message.
Okay. What can I ask? What motivates you to continue fighting, for an issue that just seems intractable? I mean, Congress never moves on this.
Well, because I have no tolerance for injustice. And with my last name, if I were born in Nazi Germany in 1940, I'd be dead. So do something with your good fortune. And I meet parents of dead children every day, and we don't have the gene to bury our children and ever be the same. And the injustice of a Congress that is more concerned about blood money campaign contributions than 100 lives a day, 36,000 lives last year lost to largely preventable gun violence, is unconscionable. And we need to take back our democracy and save lives. And there's no downside in trying. And here in urban industrial Massachusetts, we've proven that gun laws work.
Okay, and finally, just to wrap things up real quickly, is there anything people can do?
Yes. Go to stophandgunviolence.org. And then go to Shaw's, Star, Osco Drug, and tell the store manager why you will never shop there again as long as they continue selling Bushmaster AR-15s that killed those babies at Sandy Hook.
And we'll leave it right there. John Rosenthal, Stop the Handgun Violence. Thanks for coming in, and good luck in your fight.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck to all of us.
All right, okay. Coming up, next Summer Search, a program working to close the opportunity gap for underserved kids. All of the details right here on Urban Update in just a moment.